Position, I'm not sure, but I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I know.
But if you want to. But yeah. You know, you can choose. Okay. So, yeah, this is all my community and you know, so like, if you did say,
Of this what it is.
all you have to do. You know, you have to.
Hi, Kat. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Shannon. Hi, Tim. I'm putting the attendance in the chat while we're waiting to get started.
Thank you, Kat.
Hey, Shannon, how are you?
Good, Tim. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So I noticed we have a 90 to 100 minutes. We might need that. We might need a little less than that. So we'll just we've got the process sort of figured out that it'll work the way that it needs to work, and just whenever it's done, it'll be done. So if it's a few minutes early, is that hopefully that's a bonus time and a blessing rather than a problem.
No, yeah, we extended this meeting for 2 hours just to give y'all 90 minutes. I went ahead, since we went a little over that last time, to give a little extra padding, but if you don't use all of it, that's perfectly fine. We can end early.
Perfect, perfect. We'll enjoy some bonus time then.
Yeah.
All right, I'll start my camera in just a bit once we get our friends back.
All right, sounds good. Hi, Victoria. Hi, Steph.
Hello, Victoria. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a little hectic, but besides that, it's been fun.
Mm-hmm. A little hectic yet fun. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the roundtable today.
Mm-hmm.
How are y'all doing?
It's raining up here, so that's nice.
Ooh.
It looks like it might rain. It looks like it's thinking about perhaps raining, and so we'll see how that shakes out. But I'm hopeful. It's looking like the right kinds of clouds are gathering. So we will see.
That's been happening over on my end for the past couple of days, where it's just like it might rain, but then it doesn't. Steph agrees. I was like driving yesterday to get like my nose pierced, and when I was driving it started sprinkling, and like I remember the news, like my weather app was telling me, oh, flash floods, and I was like, oh no, this isn't gonna be fun. But then as soon as like I got done with everything, like I walk outside, nothing. So I was like, okay, fine, I guess we're not having that after all.
Okay, so you just said nose piercing, but I'm having a hard time seeing it. Were you successful?
Yep.
Oh my goodness, it's beautiful.
Thank you. I like cried the entire time, which is so funny because I'm like covered in tattoos.
I think piercing through like those hard cartilage areas hurts really bad.
The piercer gave me like a little stress ball and I was like squeezing it the entire time.
How long did the process take? I'm just curious.
Like 5-10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I've just changed my mind about ever getting a nose piercing.
It was mostly like most of it was just like cleaning up and like setting everything up.
Yeah.
The like actual like nose piercing process was like 5 minutes.
Oh, even that.
Yeah.
I put the attendance in the chat, so if you're just joining us, if you wouldn't mind filling that out. I am, if you don't know me, Kat Jacobs. I am substituting staffing the beginning of this meeting for Austin. So if you have any issues with or need any tech support, just let me know.
Kat, I'm not sure if your Zoom works differently. Sometimes if people are just joining, they won't be able to see anything that's already been pasted. So like,
Yes. Thank you. I thought I had pasted it again when I said that, but nope, I did not press send. I've also checked the screen sharing. It should be turned on for any one participant to use at a time. So.
I'm going to give another couple minutes and then we'll get started. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Shannon Fowler, she, her, hers with the University of Arizona Ciro. And today we've kind of got a packed session. So we'll start with our education roundtable. If in the chat you want to put your name, pronouns, and your organization. And then we'll say how happy you are on a scale of 1 to 10 that it might rain this week. So, and I will turn it over to Tim.
well, actually, my name is Tim, he, him, his. I'm the executive director of TGS Educational Consulting. And I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, even the possibility of rain this week makes me at a 12. So I think that's pretty swell from my perspective for sure. Diego, I think there was some content we wanted to share at the outset, right? That I think you've got.
Yes, I do.
All right,
I have it
perfect.
here.
So I'm going to real quick turn it over to Diego.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Diego Coronado, he, him, his. I am substituting for Daniela today. For everybody that already know, I'm happy to be back and glad to see you all. So we're just going to get started with this roundtable. Roundtable number 2 for the education and housing. So can you all see my screen? Yes, okay. So before we get started, I just want to introduce the education change team. Celia Chavez, she is in the Arizona Education Department of Education. Tim Gervois, he already introduced himself. Kenya Haynes, she is with the National Center for Homeless Education. Austin Puka, we all know her with the City of Tucson. The amazing Victoria, that is helping with this effort. Myself, I just jumped in, but I'm also helping now. And Daniela, she's the one leading all this work. She's out for today. She caught a cold, but we're all here to get this done. Some housekeeping before we get started. If you could all please mute yourselves when you're if you're not speaking, in order to minimize the background noise. And today's presentation is recorded, and the slide deck and the recording will be shared later this week, just in case you were all wondering. And I just want to remind you all of the YHDP vision and statement. That's how the education change team was created, so that we can drive this effort for the YHDP. So the YHDP mission statement states, we envision communities and systems throughout the Tucson-Pima County in which the causes of youth homelessness are disrupted and its solutions are permanent. This requires radical system change built on intersectional equity and youth power. In these systems, young people drive individual housing solutions and hold equal power at all levels of community decision-making. So that's the whole purpose of the education change team, to bridge the education system and the housing system. So thank you all for coming to this meeting, because you're making this possible. Now, a small recap from the first roundtable. So there were ideas discussed and feedback on how the education system and the housing system speak to each other. We explored ideas of how to make things better, opportunities to improve, and what are some solutions. So the activity you all did on the first roundtable was also taken to the YAC. And the Youth Action Committee identified some key areas that we're going to be using for this roundtable. So I just want to give a little heads up. You might not see all the ideas that were thrown into the first roundtable. So the reason behind that is because there were key areas that the YAC identified. As the mission statement stated, we're trying to make this we want this to be a youth initiative and empowerment. So we kind of took what the YAC said and took from what you all said and put them together. And the idea for now is to come with solutions. That was just a little thing that I wanted to add. Something to note, is there some, Tim, do you have anything to add?
No, that's perfect. And we'll actually, we will see one shot of all of the ideas that came out of the last roundtable on there. And then we'll also kind of have right next to it a narrower set just based on the YAC's input. This is certainly just us on the education change team. We are at the service of YAC, and so we want to make sure that we're centralizing our youth voice in this initiative.
Yep. So at the end of this roundtable, we're gonna ask y'all to complete a survey. And these are the questions that the survey will have. So what we really want you to do is pay close attention to the post-its that you're going to see, because we're going to ask you to identify with one to see um, to let us know how do you want to work on this, who do you want to collaborate with. So pay close attention to the post-its so that when the survey comes, you know how to answer these questions. And uh, once you complete the survey, you'll be entered to a raffle with a $25 restaurant gift card. I don't know where the restaurant is, so I can ask. I might not have an answer by the end of today, but just know it is $25. And 3 winners will be chosen. And from that, I think that's all I have for now. And I'm gonna turn it over to Tim so that he can start this activity.
Thanks, Diego, and I really appreciate the introduction, and thanks again for decentralizing the voice of our youth in this process, for sure. Where am I? Okay, here we go. I want to make sure I'm sharing the right one, and I am. Okay. Here we go. All right. And it's always fun on these Zoom things that I never know exactly where my people are going to fly to whenever I share my screen, and it looks like you flew way up to the upper right corner. I'm going to put you back to where I can kind of feel like I'm looking you all in the eye when I'm facilitating our activity today. The other thing I just want to share is that I just love the norms of this group, where if you're in a camera on kind of place, great. If you're in a camera off kind of place right now, just do it. We can be successful in our work no matter how we want to shake it out today. So it's great to have everybody here, and it's just a true privilege of mine to get to be able to do this kind of work with you. So what you're seeing on the screen is just some behaviors that I've noticed in groups that I work with that really support outstanding work and outstanding collaboration. And they come from Glenn Singleton's work with Courageous Conversations About Race, and they work for just about any kind of conversation we want to have, to be perfectly honest. And one of the things too that I love about this is that there's just not a whole lot of need for us to develop norms collaboratively or anything like that. They all just seem to work. So what I'd like to invite you all to do is speak your truth today. If there's something from your perspective that needs to be said, make sure it gets into the chat. I've got some amazing people from the Education Change team who will help me attend to those things as they come up. Feel free to unmute and share at any time. Whether you're a small child all the way up to 99, we want your input and make sure that it's in here for sure. The other thing too is to experience some discomfort, especially just at the last roundtable. There were a lot of ideas in there. We'll notice that feedback from the YAC generated a very different kind of set of post-its, connected, but different in focus. And there might be some tension around that about how we work on those solutions moving forward. Lean into that discomfort a bit. What I'm not saying is that, if you're stiff in your chair, don't roll your shoulders if you need to. It's not the kind of discomfort we're talking about. But just note that, this work is bound to have some fruitful disagreements to it from time to time. And those are the kinds of things that we want to lean into. The other thing is just an invitation to expect and accept non-closure, where we'll get as much done as we can within the time that we've got. But the project we're working on to end youth homelessness in Pima County is big. It's big, and the right people are on this call to work on it for sure. It's going to take some time, but we're also going to work with all due speed. And part of that process might be accepting some non-closure today. And then the last one is stay engaged. Be part of the process. Be part of the conversation. However that means for you, I invite you to stay engaged and participate. We're certainly in for a fantastic time together today. All right. Is anybody curious about any of those invitations? We have 4 invitations up on the screen. What invitation might someone be curious about? All right, well, fantastic. What I'd like you to do is just maybe pick one and make that one yours today. I think for mine, I'm definitely going to choose to be focused on speaking truth and encouraging others to do that. That'll be mine. Pick one, make it yours, and enjoy. All right, friends. All right, just wanted to share a little bit about who I am. So I'm the guy in the weird hat right here. This is me. This is us at a splash pad because it got really, really hot here in Tucson, if you may have noticed. This is my son, my daughter, so far as I know. They're absolutely loving the splash pad, but they actually decided they like snack more. So we were splashing for 5 seconds and snacking for 90 minutes. So that's how we spent that particular adventure to the splash pad. Over Easter, I took the family to the beach to visit some family we have out in LA. I don't have a lot of photos of my oldest actually because she hates being photographed. So she decided to photobomb this particular one of her brother and sister playing. And it's the nicest photo I've got of her this year. So this is the one that we've got on the wall because that's the nicest one I got. This is a very effective alarm clock. So if you ever need to for sure wake up exactly when the sun comes up, this little one for sure will make sure that happens for you. And this is usually what it looks like every single morning. So this is a highly effective alarm clock. I think there's probably, if you got other highly effective alarm clocks like this in your house, you know the feeling for sure. A lot of times I look like this when I'm doing this kind of work professionally. I facilitate a lot of meetings like this where I help people connect and collaborate and solve really wicked problems like the ones that we're working on right now. And so it's just a little bit about me personally and professionally. And again, it's a pleasure for me to be here. What I'd like to do is there's a frame. It's available to you if you like. I shared some photos. If you've got a photo that you'd like to add to this Jamboard, I'm going to go ahead and plop the link to do so into the chat. Another option that you've got is if you don't particularly want to add a photo to the Jamboard frame, where is my chat to do that? If you don't want to add a photo to the Jamboard frame, it might be fun to just kind of imagine something special, something that might be on a photo in your cell phone that brings some smile and brings some joy. Feel free to just call that to mind as we proceed to. All right. So what I wanted to share was this was the output of one of the frames of the Jamboard that we worked on last time when we were at a meeting like this. And what this particular one says is if we could do anything, for example, to remove barriers for youth housing, what might we do? And we had a lot of great ideas in the call. It was just a lot. It was just a tremendous amount of ideas up here to work on. And as the education change team was reflecting on this, we wanted to have a way of making sense of it. And so what we did was, just as Diego described earlier, we took it back to the YAC, and we asked for the youth voices that were on YAC to really take the lead on this. And we did the same activity, and we did it specifically with them. And so one of the things that I wanted to just highlight here, where we did a very similar activity. Here's the one that talked about barriers to education, right here. I'm wondering if on the shared screen, if these are a little bit low. Is there someone on the edge, or little to see? Is there someone on the Ed Change team who's on the Jamboard who can help me out and maybe expand the size of the post-it somewhat? All right, thank you, Diego. I appreciate the help. That the youth also had some input on this exact same question. For example, like what if we could do anything to reduce barriers to education? What are some things that we might do? So just going to kind of go back to the last frame right here. Just take a quick look at it. Maybe get a sense of what kinds of ideas were here. This one is the one where it was at this meeting with a large group, a large round table that a whole bunch of people added. And then we have this one right here. And I'm going to invite people to speak truth in just a second. And especially if you were there at that YAC meeting, it'd be great if you could speak some truth to that here. What I'm wondering about is, what do you notice? What do you notice might be a bit different about what YAC did when they did exactly the same activity? So the invitation is speak your truth and share a difference that you notice. And feel free to do that by unmuting and sharing or adding something to chat. And I will mute so I can listen.
Hey, Tim, it's Sylvia Chavez from ADE. So right away, the first thing I came up to was McKinney-Vento liaisons knowing more information about college. That was something that wasn't brought up, with the providers Jamboard. I want to say like 90% of these were not brought up.
So Sylvia, I want, if you're willing to, can I ask you to tell me a little bit more? So that one was real specific, just that McKinney-Vento liaisons have access to information about college. So that was a really big one and very concrete one. How does that compare in terms of just scope to some of the other ideas in the previous one where we all were there contributing? Like in terms of let me ask it a different way, actually, Sylvia, I'm sorry. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like the most concrete idea ever, and how is that one from your perspective as McKinney-Vento liaisons having college information?
That's a 10. I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah. And so kind of going back to, here's the one where we had kind of the bigger one right now. Some of these ideas are pretty concrete. If you were to, when we take a look at most of them on a scale of 0 to 10, where might some of them be, Sylvia, and from your perspective?
I want to say we did a lot of like 2s and 3s.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that's really good ideas, stuff that could probably be part of the solution to all of the questions that we're asking. But in terms of concreteness, it tended to be a bit more conceptual and abstract than the feedback that we got from YAC. Would that be accurate?
That was 100% accurate, yes.
All right, perfect. All right, who else? What else might anybody be noticing just about some differences between the kind of feedback we were getting from YAC and maybe some feedback that we got from the larger roundtable last time?
What I notice now and also from the YAC meeting is during the last roundtable, we did touch a little bit on like forgiveness for people that have like evictions on their record or like bad credit. But in the YAC slide, it really like pops. Like that was like a main thing we were talking about.
Yeah, so in the one specifically to housing too, on the one, I didn't actually include that one from the last roundtable, but on the last roundtable, there were ideas from like build tiny houses to like rooftop tents. There were all sorts of really interesting ideas, like stuff that might be kind of neat to see and do. But when it came down to like the feedback from the YAC, Victoria, what I'm hearing you say was that it was really just at that level of interfacing with apartments and landlords, that was where YAC's focus was. Is that accurate?
I feel like a lot of the education goals like very much overlapped with the housing goals. Like when we were working on the housing slide, it was very much, we were like repeating what we talked about in the education slide, especially when we talked about like the free car. Like those are on both slides. So it was very much like the problems with education and housing really do go hand in hand.
There was a straight line that you can draw from one to the other, that if there's a resource you need for one, there's a resource that's going to be really helpful for the other as well. And, some might be a little bit less, a McKinney-Vento liaison is probably, well, I don't know. Maybe it's an assumption I'm making right now that a McKinney-Vento liaison might not be able to help with housing as much, but actually that's an assumption. That's an assumption that actually might not necessarily be true. And we might be able to uncover some of that in the process that we're about to go through with all of these post-its in just a bit. And I'm really excited about that. Really excited about that process too. So one of the things I just wanted to highlight was that all of the ideas that came out of anytime I facilitated this activity with any group were good. They were good. They were connected to the question that we asked. One of the things that I just want to highlight is that in terms of the work that I'm doing with the education change team and that we're all doing as part of this amazing project that we're on, we're really at the service of YAC, and we want to make sure that we're focused on the issues that young people are identifying. This is what this project, this is whom this project is for. And so I'm really excited to be able to do this process again and get really crispy, is the word that I use with the work that we're going to do today. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to ask a couple of questions here. One of the things that's not here is who's going to do all of this stuff? Who's going to do all of this stuff? And one of the things that I would like to say is that there are people on this call right now, some of whom that I actually know your work inside and out, and I know that you could definitely do some of the post-its that are here. You can make some of this happen yourselves. You can do it. The other thing that I know is that there are people on this call who know people who can do these things. So one of the things that I'm going to invite you to do right now is we're going to take just a couple of minutes and we're just going to read this particular frame. So this frame right now is YAC's recommendations for what needs to happen to reduce barriers to participation in education. So what I asked them to do was to write 3 or 4 Post-it notes, make one of them kind of weird, and none of them were weird. They all actually seemed to make a lot of sense when it came down to it. So what I'll do is just kind of look at my little timer up there, give us about a minute to read the different Post-its. And then what I'm going to ask is who should do it? And I've got some parameters around how we assign a Post-it to someone, but we need to know who's going to do it. So first, right now, just take a minute to read, and I'm going to mute so you can read. Actually, before I do that, what questions might we have about what we're doing right now? I'm going to cold call somebody. Diego, what are we doing now?
What are we doing now? We're making this Post-its crispy.
Step one is we're making the Post-its crispy. Step one.
Yeah. So identify somebody, or you identify as an organization if you are able to take on whatever that Post-it is.
We gotta do what? We gotta
read it.
Read the Post-its. Fantastic. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Diego. I knew I could cold call Diego and he would get it right. So thanks, Diego, for letting me do that. Sebastian, you're next. All right. So in any case, all right. So we get a minute right now. We'll just read them just a second, and then we will make them crispy.
So again, how to make them just a little bit more crispy.
Oh, no. Your turn is coming on the next frame. Diego,
I know. What I'm saying is I'm wanting to have a little way. So you're just wanting me to make it a little more crispy is what you're saying? Like just any of them, or?
Sebastian, it's always great to hear from you. The answer is yes, exactly that. Exactly that. My little timer says a minute's passed. What I like, here are the rules. The first step to making something crispy is somebody needs to be in charge of it. Somebody actually needs to be the person who has to do it. The second part of making something crispy is we need to know when it's going to happen. When is it going to happen? Some of these things can be a one-time event. Some of these things happen as they are needed. Some of these might happen at certain points throughout the year when it makes sense to do. So what I'd like to do right now is just invite you to make it crispy by doing step 1. And step 1 is who should do it. Now, here are the rules for how to assign somebody to do it. Either it is somebody who's on this call who you know for a fact because of the work that they do can do it, and say, you know what? I think it's Yodo. I think Yodo should give everyone free cars. Now, I don't know if Diego's going to agree with that or not, but that's Diego's job to say. So, but that's one of the rules. The other rule is if you know somebody whose job it really is to do these kinds of things, whose job it is to do that, assign them to do that. Now, it's crispier if this is a person that you know, and by know, I mean like you could call them and they would pick up the phone when you call. Like if Austin were here and I needed help with something, I know that she would pick up the call when I called her for help. She has many times before. So I don't necessarily know Regina Romero that well though. So if there's some of those kinds of things, try to make it somebody that you know. And by know, I mean that if you called them, they would pick up, they would take that call. All right. So step 1, we're going to make it crispy by just telling me who should do it. Now this probably works better by just kind of taking them one by one. So how about this one, Sylvia, just because I know this is your bag and this is something you've actually thought about a bit since then. But anybody else, I think there's some good ideas here too. McKinney-Vento liaisons should know more information about college. Whose job is it to make sure they have more information about college?
I will take that responsibility and partner up with a provider with some help.
Okay. Sylvia, you just made that the easiest crispification process ever. Thank you. All right. So she said, I'm going to do it and I know exactly who's going to help. All right. That's perfect. That doesn't always happen. So thanks. When?
Let's say December. Okay.
So by December?
Yes.
All right. So Sylvia by December. All right. Perfect. Is there somebody else who can do the typing so I can think and do it?
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I do, Sylvia. Thank you. So the reward for accepting a job is more work. I appreciate it. All right. So there's that one right there. Sylvia, you get to pick the next one.
Sorry, I'm between mute and Jamboard. Let's say provide Uber, Lyft, and Lyft accounts for young people experiencing housing instability.
All right, friends. Who should do that? Or who could do that?
I think it should be any housing providers or any organizations that are working with youth experiencing homelessness. Like that's something that I think Yodo should pilot and see if it works.
I will let Daniela know. So Diego, thank you just for Yodo. That might be a post-it for Yodo to work on. Who else here is a housing provider? Diego, feel free to call him out if you know him.
So this is Lydia from Chicanos por la Causa. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Lydia.
Hi, Lydia.
Nice to be here. And I'm trying to be a really quick study. This is my first attendance at the roundtable, but I'm loving everything that everyone's saying. I think in an example like the Uber and Lyft accounts, that could be not only organizations like CPLC, but it seems to me that there are several either divisions or whole organizations that sort of swirl around the space of being able to either themselves provide access to accounts or provide sort of gift cards, if you will, towards supporting that. And maybe it could be a coalition of us sort of pooling a percentage of our resources that we have and even making it a group ask instead of an individual organization asking. Maybe it could be a group coalition ask toward that support when we are speaking to stakeholders, supporters, just, other folks in the community who may not have the thousands and millions to put into big grants, but maybe could do smaller grants like this on an ongoing basis.
So Lydia, that's super crispy. So the idea, if I'm hearing you, is that there would be one group that Sebastian, it seems you're liking the word crispy here. So you're gonna make me lose my focus here. But Lydia, in any case, what I'm hearing is just the idea that maybe there's a lead organization that manages this, but a coalition of organizations might be more efficient at providing the funding for it.
Exactly. And I want to apologize to everybody. I don't have my camera on because I've been in my car, but I'll at least wave at you for a second. So you see I'm here. Yes, that's my idea. And I'm wondering, maybe it could be a subcommittee to this coalition, or it could be part of folks from this coalition who then make the offer for others in the community to be part of the effort. So either way.
I think that's fantastic. Who might add to the Uber and Lyft post-it right now?
Hi, this is Jesus from Google Metro Rec. I know that Yodo does provide some forms of transportation to youth that are enrolled with them. And another thing we have to take into account with that is we're going to have a grant that helps these youth get smartphones, because without a smartphone, you can't use Uber or Lyft. So that's another thing we probably need to figure out how to get that going too.
Yeah, that's a fantastic thing to bring back to Yak and just ask Yak, is this something that you're perhaps something that we didn't think about when you were talking about Uber and Lyft? Is that having a phone in the first place is a gateway to that entire idea working?
Yeah, and to tag on to that, not just a smartphone, but also a data plan.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, there's a post-it for that too. For sure, absolutely, Zach. Thank you.
I would say, to add on to the Uber and Lyft note, partnering with Uber or Lyft, since they've been able to do partnerships like giving free rides to people who need vaccines. Maybe they could do something like give free rides to people that need need a ride to a school or something, that or at least discount it and then have the housing provider pay the rest. And then when it comes to the smartphones, I just wanted to add that like having a smartphone is like vital most times, because like that's where you got most of the apps. And also like whenever you have to do like assignments, sometimes you just have to do it right on your phone with Google Docs or something.
So can I give my input? Okay, so this is my input. Okay, so yeah, using Uber or Lyft does help the economy go around. Yeah, but like my input or like my outlook on it is like, what stops us from like getting a van and having a set person with a set salary to do something, or a part-time salary to do something like that, you know? Because from my experience, like if I have 10 rides and they all cost $9, that is $90 right there, you know? And then they vary from time to time, you know? Well, okay, that's a given. We know that already. But then from my understanding, it's like, okay, now we know these kids are going to need a smartphone in order to do so. So we know the investment takes what it's going to take. But for now, I mean, from my experience, I've had Yodo help me and aid me with rides and stuff, and I've with like rides and et cetera. But for me, it's like that I'm looking at it from a financial point of view. I'm not sure if a driver gets paid a lot or if they should get paid a lot or how that goes, you know, but I do know how businesses do work a little bit, and I know a van with some tax write-offs can help, you know, a little bit with that vehicle. And that's kind of my understanding from that. I'm not sure if that even helps or if that's even really valid, you know, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. Just because of that is a huge investment. Okay, here's a cell phone, here's a data plan, and then here's a gift card for Uber.
So another possibility then is not outsource it to Uber or Lyft at all. Just have a ride service that just exists here in Tucson and is managed here by Tucson.
Yeah, and then another concern would be an abuse of the actual gift cards. Now, if a person does need a ride, I understand, you know, you need a ride from point A to point B, whether it's school, whether it's a doctor's appointment, towards your living situation. I understand that is a need. I do understand, but I think with you know, great communication, they can call their handy dandy, you know, ride that's already set for this organization that helps these particular people. That's just my outlook on that. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and it's definitely another option and can be included in the post in the post-it for sure. The post-it for sure, and could even be an additional solution beyond. I think that's just fantastic. Thank you.
So Sebastian, I really love that idea. This is Zach again, he, him. And I think there's already sort of a program like that in Tucson. It's the Sun Van through the ADA, American Disabilities Act. And right now you have to be have a qualifying disability to qualify for those rides. But then once you do, it's just a van that picks you up and you have to call between 1 and 7 days in advance for them to pick you up. And so I'm wondering if we would just be able to get like homelessness as a qualifying cause for that. And then you'd be able to get a ride, or maybe like a youth homeless specifically if we don't want to, you know, try to overload the system at first, but it could be worth a shot.
So the question then is, and we might actually need to maybe copy this post-it then, because this is a slightly different idea, is to have like a Sun Van option or some other provider run a local transportation service of some kind. So the rule of Crispy is that somebody's got to know somebody at Suntran. Does anybody on the call know that somebody that they could call who would take the call and say, hey, let's have a meeting and talk about this idea? Or know somebody who might?
Yes, it's Lydia, certainly.
All right, Lydia. So remember, one of the things Diego shared at the outset is that there's going to be a form. It's going to ask you for which post-it to take a look at. Note that one then. Note that one. This is if that's something that you can help the education change team make a connection to Suntran, that might be another way to support YAC in achieving the goals that they've set out.
You got it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet.
All right, Victoria, why don't you pick the next post? Is it okay if we move on to the next post-it? Is there other input on this particular one on transportation that someone would like to add?
Oh, I'm still unmuted. I'm so sorry, Tim. It's Sylvia. I just want to make sure that we're hearing, I think there's different options we can have. I do hear the shared transportation piece, the utilizing the Suntran. Hope I'm saying that right. But what I want to go back to, and what I think we heard, I wasn't there at the YAC, but what I've heard from other students is that they don't want to be identified as someone who needs this special transportation, whether it's a marked van or unmarked van or a bus or things of that nature, that the Lyft or Uber would be more inconspicuous to get them to school. So I just want to observe that there could be different reasons for needing an Uber and Lyft. And if you don't have time because you move around, our students can move around and be transient from time to time. If they order a vehicle a week in advance and then they're not at that location when the day they need to be at school, that's the need for that immediate pickup.
And there might be something to consider too, is that different youth might have different transportation needs or desire or willingness to use different kinds of services. So it might be actually helpful to have some options. Very helpful.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sylvia. Shannon, would you pick our next post-it?
I was actually getting with Jesus about the one on taxes and credit. And right in the middle.
There we go. All right. Oh, this one. Oh, I totally forgot to delete the people that Yak thought should do it. All right. But in any case, on this one, yes. All right. So let's take a look. Tell me more.
So I actually have a advanced tax law degree, so I could work with Goodwill to come up with a curriculum that both Lighthouse and Goodwill could use.
All right, Shannon, that's yours. I love it.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I could definitely have my team look at that, Sam, Mercedes, and Anissa, talk with Shannon about what curriculum youth really want in there and how long it should be, all that stuff, because they have great insight into that. I love that idea.
Do we have a by when, or can I ask for a time
Now's
frame?
a perfectly good time to talk about that. And actually, we should have talked about that on the last one. So thank you, Sylvia. Let's do the by when on the tax one real quick, and then let's go back to the transportation one and talk about that too.
Maybe 60 days.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That sounds beautiful. 60 days from, we will just be a really disciplined facilitator here. 60 days from today. All right, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that one is done. Jesus, would you be so kind as to pick our next one?
I would say free and good Wi-Fi throughout Tucson.
All right, free and good Wi-Fi throughout Tucson. All right, who should provide that?
The city of Tucson should provide that for sure. Pima County, the whole state should provide that for every area, especially rural areas. Like on Nogales Highway, where I grew up at, I lived there last year, and there's no high-speed internet, so they have to have buses with hotspots out there, and it's been like that for, I want to be 35 for 35 years. And I think they're going to put some high-speed internet into the elementary school there on Summit, but that's about it. None of the whole area is not going to get high-speed internet. And working with homeless youth who come into the centers at Metro and the Rec, they only have phones that they'll be able to use if they have Wi-Fi connections to make calls and everything. So if we don't have Wi-Fi and say we get the transportation going with different options, they're not going to really be able to use their phones or anything to communicate. And this is very difficult, especially when you're trying to find them if they get selected for housing or anything like that, when their phone doesn't work because they have no Wi-Fi connections where they're at. So it really hampers them in getting housing, getting their schooling done, getting a job, etc. Like it really hampers them without having Wi-Fi, I'm sorry.
So Jesus, that's exactly it. So either Wi-Fi needs to be good and universal and all over the place, or phones also need to come with data plans, or both, to make a lot of this useful. Access to the internet is a problem that needs to be solved. And one of the things that has been really just neat to watch in the course of the pandemic is a lot of school districts even have solved this problem, have made internet available in places and in ways that nobody ever conceived of or thought possible before too. So it's possible that there is somebody on this call who can help work on this issue, or know somebody who can. Leela, I see ya.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is something that I know is in the works for both the city and the county. And I work at the Pima County Public Library. And I know that the library is definitely advocating, especially on the county level, for some assistance with that. And also the library has 400 hotspots that they have gotten through a CARES grant that they have been giving out to schools in rural areas of Pima County, giving to students to use. They can check them out with a card. Just, really scrambling when schools went, digital, virtual overnight. And so they've been used out in the more rural areas, like out on the reservation, out in Ajo, places like that. But it's definitely something that's on the library's radar, and definitely something that the library as a group, I mean, I don't know anybody, I can't influence anyone, but as a group, they're really pushing and really supporting. So I'm willing to help out. I'm willing to do whatever. I don't have a lot of, it's not something the library can do, but it's something the library definitely is pushing.
Well, and that could perhaps be your posted just in the sense of knowing who's advocating and doing what. That I think that having the library support is definitely not something to be underestimated, especially here in Pima County. Leela, do you by any chance, or does anyone on the call happen to know like a name of a person at the city or county who actually is working on the internet issue?
I don't, but I'm willing to find out.
County are working on it too, but I've actually never been able to figure out exactly who is doing it.
I can investigate. I'm a librarian. That's what I'm supposed to be able to do, right?
Perfect.
I'll investigate.
I don't, but I have like a little bit of an input on the situations with the hotspots, the library. If we partner up with them and them be more lenient on giving those out to particular just students, or maybe the people under the organization that we're trying to establish, maybe that could even help us out with that kind of situation there. Well, we need Wi-Fi or they need data. Well, maybe they could be more lenient on giving them to the people that actually need it, like the students or the people like under organization. She said she has 400 of them, or she said there's about 400 that is in their possession, and people check it out. And I'm sure there's like a limit on how long you can have it checked out. At least we can have some kind of and we can have them to where to go. So at least we have that.
Leela, are you able to speak to some of what Sebastian was sharing?
Were you asking me?
Leela, you're muted. Leela, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was going to try to give you a link, but it doesn't link nicely. But there's on the library's website, it's got a link to how you do that. Actually, they're all out. I mean, 400 was like all we could get. Like at the time when everybody was wanting them, that was all we could get. But if you think about all the people that live out in the rural areas of Tucson, but here's the description of the program. And yeah, I mean, if this is all the long stuff. So the question was how to borrow the mobile hotspots. If there were any, Sebastian, you could definitely come borrow one, but so this is like the FAQs for how to borrow them and kind of what the deal is with them. And then this is the link, and it's one of the questions there. It's not the whole section, but it's one of the questions there. So yeah, I mean, you know, everybody has sort of been trying to do what they can do. The school districts that have had some money have gotten some and been able to hand them out to students or like set them on a bus like you talked about. We got some through the state library. That's how we managed to get these. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's something that could be expanded. I know libraries do have Wi-Fi that that's free that you could use until 10. They don't turn it off even though they close. They're still closing early at 6. But Wi-Fi is still available right outside. Not that that's the safest thing. I want to sit outside the library, use the Wi-Fi, but it is there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I hear Sebastian.
I just want to just express some gratitude to the library for working on the issue and increasing access where you can. And so Leah, so one of the things that that you said you work on is finding out who at the city and county is specifically working on creating some sort of Tucson-wide Wi-Fi or county-wide Wi-Fi.
Yes, and I can send it out to like the whole of the YHDP thing, and so that everybody can, you know, if there's anything that we can do, like to encourage them, write a letter, send an email, give a call. I'll put as much information as I can find and send it out to everybody, including the yak, who really is, they listen to the yak, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Leah. I appreciate it very much. Appreciate it. All right. Well, Leah, would you do us a favor and pick the next post-it?
Yeah, I need to know who's the Bill Gates among us. That's what I need to know. Let's see. How about how about the no cost for books and supplies for school?
Oh, I love this one.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
This one.
Yeah.
So I want to share that one of the work that I did with a school last year was around just financial wellness and financial resiliency. And one of the things that the school actually came up with was just at the classroom level, not designing lessons to require all sorts of things that required stuff that the school doesn't already have. So just from the start, there already are schools that are thinking about that issue in a very different kind of way. But Victoria, actually, I think this one might have been even yours at the YAC meeting. I'm not certain.
I think it was, yes.
Is it okay if you share a little bit more about what you were about what that post-it's about?
Yeah, so a thing I notice a lot with like just kind of the struggles of getting books and supplies is sometimes like you get a book and you only read it like once because like that's like all that's really like necessary because the teacher's already like posting the readings. So why not just, you know, either have those teachers already post those readings or just give the books out for free. And when it comes to supplies, I was just thinking this, but I remember I went to a school that was able to buy everybody Chromebooks, so all the students had Chromebooks, but I recognize that there's some schools that don't have that kind of funding to buy Chromebooks. But another solution to that problem could be getting iPads or tablets, because those are basically just mini little computers and you could probably do more things with those, and they're a lot cheaper than a whole laptop as well. So that was another thing I was thinking about, and it is very easy, especially for university level. They can pay for those supplies for sure. And kind of to Tim's point as well, like, you know, make the curriculum so that it doesn't require you to get supplies that might not be accessible. Because the thing I noticed, especially when I was going to art school, was during one of my painting classes, I had to get a certain type of brand paint that I didn't have, but I already had like a bunch, I already had like a supply of paint that met the requirements of the school, but did not meet the requirements of the teacher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for this one, for no cost for books and supplies for school, there's actually two different issues to that. There's this one issue of just if a teacher requires it, it needs to be offered at no cost to the student, and that's both at high school and at university level. And then the other side of it is just kind of planning ahead. of thinking through what's already available within the school itself and designing effective instruction to use what's already there without asking students to purchase the supplies themselves. Is that right? All right. And Diego, I see you're unmuting too.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to remind that this happened already. Like, schools were providing laptops to students that needed it during the pandemic. Why not be able to provide books and supplies? I don't see much of a difference there. So I think the district should be responsible for this, school districts and administrators, because it can be done. It was done with laptops and internet.
Yeah.
So
Pima Community College did it, University of Arizona did it. And Diego, I really appreciate you speaking your truth in that way and also kind of helping us lean into that discomfort of it's been done. It's been done, so let's just continue to do it.
I raised my hand.
Austin and Sylvia.
Yeah, I had to raise my actual hand because I'm not allowed to push the keys. And I was, so like to chime into there, right? I have 2 young school-aged people. And yes, they were provided a laptop. And I got a glaring letter last week saying, you ain't getting that next year. Hope you enjoyed it. Kick rocks. And I was thinking, well, what, like, and I'm grateful for the privilege that my children will be all right. But what happens if they weren't? And so I'm just like, I hope maybe Sylvia's gonna like shed some information into that. Like, how's that decision made?
Did all of a sudden the laptops just
Like,
only
where are they
work?
gonna be? Are they just gonna be in storage? Because if so, then why would folks that need them not be able to?
So there may be some advocacy to be done and a clear who that we might be able to add to that conversation. Austin, thank you. And I appreciate that you speaking your truth from that parent's perspective too. My kids were lucky. They already had a Chromebook, so we didn't need to ask for one necessarily. But there were times where honestly, I was shuffling even with the devices we had, several different things around to several different people. And if we had more than one, I mean, it just is, if it's required for school, it should be provided. That's a cultural change that can be made. And it was. Throughout the entire pandemic, it was. And I appreciate everybody for highlighting the truth of that. Sylvia, I saw your hand. Sylvia?
I see that she keeps trying to talk.
Hello.
And oh, there we go.
Oh,
Did I get it? Okay. So yeah, I can definitely jump on this to advocate for where are those Chromebooks going? So here's my other, I need some help in, there's another post-it note on here. So I think these two kind of tie together. Do students know who their McKinney-Vento liaisons are?
Ooh, thank you.
Because there has to be a connection for students experiencing homelessness. And remember that homelessness could be not having their own place to live in, like they're just couch surfing or having to move in with a neighbor or an uncle and aunt just because they lost their own housing. They can have access, and they should have access to all the free supplies and books. It should never, any kid K through early childhood education through 12th grade who is experiencing homelessness, who meets that, homeless definition for McKinney-Vento for education, should never have to pay for a book and should have this year the free internet and the Chromebook in their laptop in their hands. If they don't, call me. I will put myself on that big post-it and I will find out what the heck is going on, because it's there. The Bill Gates of education is here for that piece. However, if the students aren't tagged to that McKinney-Vento program, what do I need to do? So I want to be able to help and say, how do we get this across the board? So yeah, Austin, where are those extra Chromebooks that were given to everybody? Where are they going? What's going to happen to them? And why are they not going back out to the families? So
especially
that's
with all the ESRA funds just flooding school districts for
Yes.
for this year.
I will tell you guys, and I'll shed some light, Austin, and for the team, I don't know how far this will go, but the state of Arizona is still developing their plan on how to utilize the funds. So besides Sylvia being out for a month due to some medical stuff, it's delayed for at least for the homeless education program, has delayed our plan to coming out to saying, here's what we're going to utilize our funds. So that's all and Esther's and CARES is also wrapped up in that state plan, but it's coming. It's in development. I just don't know when. I don't have a deadline, so I can't tell you a when. I can say before, hopefully before school starts in August. And then college for me, that's where I was. I'm not sure if Victoria, that's what you meant, but the books and supplies for at a college level, even though McKinney-Vento only covers K through 12 and I have funding K through 12, what can I do to help college level kiddos who need the book assistance, the vouchers? And I mean, I know places who have supplies for school, so why can't they just throw in some college supplies for college kids? I would love to help out with that piece.
Sylvia, thanks for putting your name up on that, and also be helpful if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat like the folks that you actually know who you think can help with this. That would also really help as well. And Diego, I see your hand up, and also Leah, I see that you've added something in the chat too that I wanted to highlight. Diego?
Yeah, I just wanted to offer our partnership with Sylvia because we do have connections with schools that Yodo has a Yodo liaison at every school that we have participants with. So we can help creating those connections of having a person at least at that school know who the McKinney-Vento liaison is for their district. But yeah, just wanted to add our name on there, and that posted for the McKinney liaison existing.
Thank you, Diego, and thanks to Yodo for that as well. So Leah, I wanted to highlight what you shared in chat, and Jesus, I see your hand up as well. So Leah is asking about funds for kids who've been involved in kids for foster kids. That there's services available up to 26, and perhaps those funds can also be used to support tech. Not every youth who's experiencing homelessness is involved in foster care necessarily, so that might not necessarily apply to them. But for youth that are, perhaps that is a source of support. Is there anyone who knows anything concrete about that?
I would say Eva.
Oh, Victoria.
Eva, Victoria.
All right.
So as a current young adult program recipient, I know that the education training voucher in Arizona helps with receiving tech like a laptop, as well as like if you need any support of anything else, they do a housing stipend if you're not living in the dorms, as long as you're at school either full-time or working full-time, then you should be able to get those funds. And also at the moment anyways, DCS is basically like if like a foster youth like needs help with funding and it's due to like things happening because of the pandemic, they have upwards to $2,000 that they can request and receive a check for, but that's going to be ending, I think, at the end of this September.
So at the very least, it sounds like if McKinney-Vento liaisons knew that students and the students who are involved in foster care or the young adult program could have access to this, that might be very helpful information for young people here in Tucson and Pima County.
This is Eva. So I've presented to some McKinney-Vento liaisons before, and so many of them should have that information, but I'm willing to work with Sylvia to get that information out more concretely, whether that's through resources or presentations or just being a contact person. I do that with a lot of our community providers who are not sure if someone has had like the appropriate time in foster care to qualify for some of those services. And so I'm always available if they send me, you know, that youth's name or date of birth. I can look it up and let them know exactly what that youth is eligible for and get them on the right track. So.
Ava, thank you for your partnership and your willingness to jump in with that. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Jesus, I see your hand up.
Yes. Well, Austin and I have been in communication about having an event for foster youth for that money at Metro. We're actually going to try to meet next week with my team to kind of iron it out. And if anyone's wanting to join us in that, let us, get a hold of us. We're going to have it at Metro probably at night from 5 to 7 for 2 hours, where Austin will help them, enroll for it. I would help them too, and we just want to get it out there. So we're still brainstorming. We're hoping to have it by June, mid to end of July, hopefully, or maybe even sooner. We don't know. And also with the Chromebooks for elementary, well, not for elementary, for K through 12. The Sunnyside School District does provide those, but there have been studies that have been published that shows that having Chromebooks available to every student in the district really hurts the district with their funding. And after about 1.5 years, they're pretty much obsolete. They're not good anymore. So they could take those laptops and they can never use them again because they're outdated, they get viruses, so on and so forth. And the Sunnyside School District was married some controversy on one of their previous superintendents with that program that's providing all of the laptops to the students in the district. Yeah. So it's a very touchy subject. And I think what we're really missing too with this subject is that schools are very low funded. That is why teachers send out list of what supplies that they need parents to bring to their classroom for their students to learn. And I mean, that's throughout the board. Yeah. And then I think what we're really missing too, that the youth who are 18 and up, they're falling through the cracks with services, with housing, with college. And we really need to take a look at that, because we wouldn't probably be here if we already had a good look and things in place to keep those youth from falling through the cracks with all of this, with all these Post-it notes. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably what we should really look at, is how can we plug those gaps and those holes so these youth they'll become homeless for a better part of their young adult lives.
Because that's exactly the reason why we're here. That's exactly what this is about. And I appreciate you speaking your truth in that way. Is that, and one of the things that I would like us to do is that, yes, there are issues with any one of these Post-it notes, and anything that anybody chooses to work on. We're going to discover all of the reasons why it's hard as that work happens. I absolutely will discover why it's hard. It still needs to get solved. And the reason why we're all on this call is that we're not people who are going to accept that we're going to ask students to do things that are impossible, especially students who lack a safe, permanent place to live. And that's the problem that we're working on. We are people who do not accept that has to be the case anymore. And so one of the things that I'd like to do is kind of going back to where's that laptop one? Where'd it go? Probably got a whole bunch of stuff on it by now. Part of the solution is it can be school districts that have already provided technology for students to do remote learning can find ways to continue to do that. And if it turns out that Chromebooks simply aren't a durable solution, then find tech that is. Find tech that is. The laptop I'm working on right now, I've had for 7 years. The Apple Store won't fix it anymore because they say it's vintage, but that wasn't until last month. So there's ways of solving the problem. What we need to know right now is who's going to work on it. And it looks like we've got some folks that can work on that. We've got some advocates for people in that space. It's actually a space that I know pretty well, and I wouldn't mind plopping my name on that Post-it note as well for it. And Jesus, one of the things I just wanted to highlight is that you and Austin are working on an event specifically for students who are in foster care, specifically young adults in foster care, so that they can take advantage of things that are apparently ending, holy cow, in September. Austin, did I get that wrong? I saw something in your chat that the timeline.
My thing cut out, but Eva put clarifying information for me in there. Yeah.
Oh, Eva. Okay, thank you. I should have read that next one. Okay. So yeah, this is hard to do chat and facilitate. This is really, okay, that's fantastic news. Okay, so this makes this event that Austin and Jesus are working on even more important. And again, also to highlight that this isn't going to get every youth. This is only going to work for youth who are participating in foster care. So what additional advocacy might need to be happen might be something that we come back to this group and ask for. All right. I'm going to take a point of privilege as a facilitator here because there's one that nobody's touched yet, and I think that we need to, and it's college counseling that's more catered to Black and Brown experiences. One of the things that youth are telling us is that the youth of color that we talked to at YAC, we're told that quite specifically that they got very different advice as to what their post-high school steps should be than their white peers. And I just want to speak that truth and let us lean into that discomfort right now. That's unacceptable. That's not okay. And it needs to be fixed if we're going to actually reduce barriers to education for students of color here in Tucson and Pima County. And so I'm wondering, because there's two, at least in my mind as I see it, there's two issues here. There's one, just somebody's got to actually provide this counseling that's catered to the experiences of students of color here in Tucson and Pima County. But there already are people doing counseling and apparently don't have the knowledge or skills to do it, is what we're hearing from youth. That's what youth are telling us, and I believe them. So what I'm wondering about then is who is doing that well, or who might be doing that well at providing students of color accurate information about their options and about how to do it, how to make it happen.
So Tim, it's Sylvia again over at AD. Not that we can at the Department of Education. I do have colleagues who are the counseling department who oversee the LEAs counselors. And I do have one person, her name is Andrea. I just realized I didn't put on the Post-it note. She has a specialty in higher education. So I can bring this to her by August. So I will have a conversation with her by August of 2021. And we can talk about moving forward on what's going on with the experience for Black and Brown, for the disparity, between college counseling and what she can do, and maybe put together something to bring back to
the people whose job it is to provide this information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So an actual name and actual timeline. Thank you, Sylvia. Who else knows somebody who's doing this really well?
Does it also go with high school too, like preparing from high school to college?
This is we oversee the high school, only K through 12. We don't have college at ADE. We don't oversee the college counselors. We just see the K through 12. So yeah, they would be the high school counselors.
Yeah, because I just asked a youth that was in here. I was like, "Have you talked to your counselor yet?" And he's like, "No, I don't even know who it is."
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So that's it. And actually that kind of goes with that same idea of the McKinney-Vento liaison, of you saying that it's possible to go to a school and never even know that such a thing exists and could help students like me. So the other is Jesus, that's another very parallel issue of students simply not even knowing that there is even bad counseling. I'll just call it that. Like even that bad counseling is available. But it's possible that there's also very good counseling available that students might not even know they have access to, and that's could be a very easy thing. Just putting on I've been a principal at a school before, and putting on that hat, it's just a very easy systemic thing to change. This is a McKinney-Vento liaison. The person's name is this. This is where their office is. This is how you contact them. These are the kinds of things that they do. From what youth are telling me, that's not common practice at schools right now. And it might not even be common practice for counselors, even to say, this is what I do. I share college options. I'm going to be making an appointment with you. It's not going to be optional. I'm just going to do it. And we're going to talk about these things. That could be some systemic solutions there that, Sylvia, I would like to work with you on if you're game for that. And if anybody else wants to partner with that, I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I think another thing too is that, like for Brown and for Black and Brown experiences, when it comes to that, is that at a lot of those schools where many Black and Brown students are at, they have more Army recruits out there than college recruiters, or even like I see more when I was going to school, they had more Army recruiters out there during lunch and everything, and you would never see the school counselors out there during lunch, like have a table set up, or colleges, like you might have one college day, but recruiters were there like a few times a week. They would have like cool things to give out.
You can have the pull-up contest. You can do all sorts of really cool stuff with the Army recruiters.
Yeah, and like there's none of that for college. Like if you want to get help with college, you gotta seek it out yourself instead of it just being there. Even with trade schools too, but like that was just my experience with that.
Jesus, did you know that it's just, at least for alternative schools, and I believe for schools in general, that schools actually can get points towards their letter grade for having a high number of students enlist in the armed services?
I had no idea.
Yeah, so there's an incentive already at that level for, and again, for some students, military service is what they want to do. It is a career, it's a viable option. And right now it's an option that's very often served towards in alternative schools and schools that serve students of color primarily disproportionately, just disproportionately. And so that's something to know. So what can happen then to make sure that somebody at the level of the Army recruiter needs to be doing the same kinds of things with the same kind of enthusiasm at the college level as other options that might be presented to students. So Jesus, I appreciate you speaking your truth that way and highlighting one aspect of this inequity just that's already happening now and might be easy to fix. Sylvia, I see your hand up as well.
Oh, I was sorry, I didn't lower it earlier. No, there is issues with Chromebooks. They do only have about a good 2 to 3 year window. We have funding for technology. I will just say that shouldn't be a barrier to getting technology out, but we got to recycle, reuse and change up for that. I'd also like to ask, I'm hearing a lot of voices about college preparedness, college readiness. I don't know if there's a youth on the call right now who'd be willing to bring in their voice when we're having those conversations, or can someone just email me later on if they feel like they'd like to be part of that conversation?
So Sylvia, you're asking that you'd like to speak with youth about their experiences with college information?
Yes. And what we need to do as adults to get that to the next generation.
So there's a couple of YAC members here, and Diego, you're here. Also, you support YAC as well in that work. I'm wondering if you might be able to facilitate that conversation, and if the YAC members that are on the call think that that's something that they'd like to do, which is basically to share, especially if you're a student of color, to share your experience about what kind of information did you get for college, what kind it was, and Austin, you shared something in chat too that parallels what YAC shared.
And I also think that if students of color do get to the University of Arizona or whatever university they go to, there should be some support groups there, because at least for me, I did experience a culture shock because I went to a school that was pretty much segregated Hispanic population. Then I go to the U of A and I'm really just a minority there. Like I really see it. And it would be nice to maybe have some groups there that, students of Black and white and brown or, LGBTQ can go and get support, whether it's through the counseling services there or somewhere else, just to help make sure that they can make it through like the first semester and first year of college and on. I don't know if that's something that YAC would think that would help or not. I don't know.
I would say that, I'm sorry, Diego.
No, I was just gonna answer your question about facilitating that conversation. We could add it to one of the meetings for the YAC, one of the agenda items. And Sylvia, you will be welcome to join the meeting and ask those questions. But yeah, I'm okay with that.
Sounds like the goal is just to get information, just from your perspective, what are you being told about college? And what I would actually consider doing is there a way, Sylvia, maybe to expand that? Like, how can we get that data even beyond YAC? Like, how can we really provide a space for Black and brown voices to be really centralized in that conversation? What has your school told you about college? What's your school told you about college? And let's just find out. I think that would be really instructive. And I'm not sure that I've got exactly a crispy post-it right here to figure out, but I think that's going to be really important to solving that right there too. And Jesus too, just from like your experience too. When I did this activity with Yak, Yak was very clear. They were very laser focused on just the right now next thing to do. I mean, there was no post-it about support when I got to college because they didn't see themselves as even getting the information to get there in the first place. However, assuming that problem can be solved, all right, now what? What happens next? How do we make this experience the success experience that it can be? I think it's definitely something that would be good to bring back to Yak and to see if that's something that they like the education change team to work on. I appreciate that that feedback.
And if you guys want to get like more, like have an event at the rec or metro, we're open to full capacity to get experiences from Black and Brown LGBTQ youth who are going to college or in college. Our limit is off, so we can have as many people as we can get down there, as many youth, as long as it doesn't interfere with the fire code. You know, how many people we can have in this place at one time.
Oh, that sounds like a challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see if we can do it. See if we can make fire code a problem.
Yeah, if you're and if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask, but you know. So yeah, we're more than willing to offer our spaces up to those talks. I mean, because we also provide services and to our youth that are getting their GED or they're going through grad to go to either PIMA or the U of A. We help with the FAFSA. We know someone at PIMA that can help our youth with counseling and stuff, and we've even talked to them about having some support groups there if they do get there. You know, to help them through the process, not just registering and going to class, but how they're feeling, because college is totally different than getting your GED or high school diploma or going to high school. So we're more than willing to offer our spaces to help with this because it's a really vital for our youth to have a chance out there.
And staff also agrees that it would be great to have more youth involved in this topic.
I think it would be an exciting project and very instructive. It would allow for the kind of discomfort that we need to have, that we need to experience to solve this problem for real. And Jesus, I appreciate your willingness to host something like that. I think we'll be in touch. Here's what I just want to note, just in terms of a time perspective, we haven't even touched housing yet, but we're pretty close to done with this one. What I'd like to do is let's make crispy the I think we got two that have not been crispied yet. Well, three. One's kind of connected to internet a bit, but there's one that because it shows up in both places, I'd like to take a look at. It relates to transportation. Youth were pretty clear. We need a car. We need access here in Tucson, here in Southern Arizona. It would really support us if we had access to a vehicle that works and I could drive myself to see an apartment or to class or to whatever it was that I needed to do. And I'm disposed to believe youth when they tell me something as clearly as that. So I'm wondering about that. Who can give everybody a call? Or who can give everybody a car? Excuse me, a car. Well, not everybody, but a youth experiencing homelessness who might be able to provide a car to a youth for whom that's a solution. All right, Austin.
Not me. I can't give them all a car, but I was thinking about what Leah brought up around the foster care opportunity, that if I'm like trying to use my photographic memory, there is a column in there that talks about that it could be used for transportation. It even said purchase a vehicle. It had a cap on the amount, and that obviously is only for former foster youth. But like, if there's even a way to ask that system, how did you get to there? To, you know, like, I think that sometimes we are only thinking of who's gonna do it. Sometimes you just got to say, how did you do it, and emulate that with your funding or resources or whatever.
Austin, do you know anybody who are these people that are in charge of this?
I'm here.
You might be able to answer that question, that how did you do it?
I'm here.
Oh, Eva, hey, you're here. How'd you do it, Eva?
Well, those are federal dollars. So those were part of the care package, like the CARES Act.
CARES Act,
And that's where we got those funds, and that's where they were very what's the word I'm looking for? Loose in their
Flexible.
restrictions, whereas usually we're more restricted for how we can use those funds. And this time, because of all the difficulties people were having with COVID, they were less restrictive. And so that's why we were able to open it up to that. So that certainly is still open until the end of September. And it is capped right now at $2,000. But I mean, if there's young people who can find, who want to ride a scooter or a motorcycle, and that might be helpful to helping them get that, that's something that they can certainly access right now. And yeah, and you're right, that isn't going to help all of the homeless youth that we're talking about, but it could help some of them.
But if folks like counselors and McKinney-Vento liaisons and the Yoda liaisons, I mean, if that was something that we were all fluent in, at least here in Tucson and Pima County, just even knowing that exists for students involved in foster care. Eva, you've done a huge support to students who are in that bucket. Now, it doesn't fit everything else, but it might at least help us provide a model, as Austin was saying, to figure out, okay, well, how does that happen then? Because what if all of these ESSER funds and CARES Act funds turn out to work really, really well? Then perhaps there's a case to be made that it needs to be permanent. It needs to be just something that we do now. And that might be something that we have an opportunity to work with if we can maximize student participation who are eligible, at least for this. So I just think it's fantastic that just between Eva, Austin, and Jesus and everybody else involved in that there's scooping up as many young people as we can who can benefit from this. And I think it's going to be just tremendous. All right, but what if you're not? What if this is not going to be a program that you can participate in? How else might this happen?
I still kind of think we should reach out to the way I got my first car when I was a youth, and I asked a tow company if I could buy one of their impound cars for almost no money. And I feel like there's digging to do there. Just give us your cars. Like, what are you doing with them? It's just causing garbage.
That sounds like a really fun thing. And I've already taken on at least 3 Post-its. So I wonder who else thinks that this might be fun to do, to call a tow company and just say, hey, we've got youth who need a car. They have no money, but it won't be in your lot anymore. So can you give us a car? Who's the kind of person who is like, maybe with the church raffle came up, had no problem hitting up every business in 4th Avenue asking for donations? Like if that sounds like that kind of person would be perfect for this gig.
I don't mind calling people and asking them to give us their freaking money and resources. You put me on there.
All right, perfect. And Austin, if you need help, I'm happy to help. I don't want to take the lead because I feel like, if you haven't noticed, I'm white and a man. And I feel like I've had a lot of Post-its, and I think we've got a lot of other people that can do things. But if you need help with just calling, like I can't get to these 3 today, hand me the number and I'll do it.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, perfect. All right, the last one then is free college.
Tim,
It's free.
Sorry, there was just a few comments in the chat. Jesus said, is there any way we could figure out how to get vouchers for youth to participate in driving school academy?
Oh, learning to drive.
And Jesus also mentioned that incentive could be we can help with money to get a car, scooter, motorcycle. So with those vouchers, getting a scooter or motorcycle.
So,
that's what I'm understanding.
I think it was Lydia who was on the call earlier when we were talking about Uber and Lyft, about this idea of, maybe one organization facilitates that, but it's going to be a coalition that provides the funds to make it happen. I'm wondering if a similar kind of thing at the you get a car level might need to happen. There might need to be somebody who's just in charge of okay, how do you get referred to the car program? That one person needs to be in charge of that, but it might need to be a broader group that is contributing to the tow company fund or whatever it's going to be.
Hey, this is Eva. So there's been an organization in Maricopa County for some years called Opportunity Passport, where they have young people do some financial literacy classes, and the incentive is that they then get funds that they can use toward, a down payment on a house or a down payment on a car, or whatever it is that they want to use it for. So it might be worth it to maybe communicate with them. I know that they've received money from some different grants and other things that they've applied for to get the funding for that program. So I don't know if that's something that maybe one of our organizations here might be able to build up, and different organizations working collaboratively to do something similar. So I can get information on that, and you know what I mean? So just to have that as that starting off point of, if it's not been done here before, but it's been done somewhere else, can we replicate that here? And I know that that's something that they've done there in Maricopa County for some years.
Eva, that sounds fantastic. Thank you. So is any chance that you know anyone at Opportunity Passport or anyone in Maricopa County who does?
Yeah, I definitely can find someone to give me more information about it.
Perfect. Eva, thank you. I just love this roundtable. This is problem solving. This is connections being made. This is networking happening to solve the problems that YAC asked us to solve. And what I also just see is that kind of all the problems that are adjacent to all the problems are getting thought about in really important ways too. So just everything from, like, great, have a motorcycle, but need to learn to ride it. Now, a lot of our youth, they've been driving just because anyway, and have figured it out. Driving, it might be helpful and supportive to just to have a way of doing it. So, and to kind of have a formal way of learning how, at least available. And so I appreciate Jesus for popping that in the chat there too. So it looks like the last one we've got is, I'm sorry, is there anything else in chat or other thoughts on vehicles that we want to speak in? Is any truth that needs to be spoken before we move on to the last one? Last posted on this frame. All right, perfect. Friends, I just want to say thank you. Just one of the invitations I issued earlier was to stay engaged. You've all done so marvelously. I just really appreciate that. Thank you for that. All right, so we've got a little bit of time to take a look at the next one. The next one is different. The frame was about specifically housing. So if we could remove barriers to housing, what are the kinds of things that we might do? So one of the things that I just wanted to share with this slide that I found really striking. So when we did this in the larger group roundtable, there were some amazing creative ideas that I thought were just really neat. They're just really neat and would be really supportive. When we talked to youth about it, again, just kind of similarly to, for example, college counseling, youth were very, what was on their mind at the YAC, or this, my characterization of it was the right now issue, the right now issue of when I walk into a leasing office and want to rent an apartment, there's barriers that I've got. And these were the kinds of things that they talked about. And so I want to give just a moment to just read them. These are the post-its that you said, and just like I did last time, kind of what you noticed about it. Take a moment now to just read them, and then I'll just ask for what do you notice about what youth are sharing with us. I'll just take one more breath, and then I will ask for some thoughts on what you notice. What do you notice about what youth are saying? What barriers youth are asking us to address?
So Jesus says in the chat, renter insurance and how to read a lease aren't easy things to read as an adult. Can you imagine reading and understand one as a young adult? Those all are true. So Jesus was touching on how rental agreements could be difficult for adults, and imagine how it could be for young adults that it probably is their first rental.
And you know, I'm just, Jesus and Diego, you're calling to mind, I don't remember if this is true or if this is just a fake memory, but I remember one of the youth actually talking about that as another one of those kind of class ideas of just knowledge about how the process works. And I'm wondering if that might even be a good post-it about, like, here's a pretty typical lease. These are the kind of things that go into that. I remember something like that happening, but it could also be a pretend memory. But it might be worth at least putting on a post-it and bringing back to Yak and asking about. So there was like a request for information about taxes and how to fill out a FAFSA and that kind of thing. It might be a similar kind of thing that would be supportive in this space as well.
Well, I would like to ask the Yak members present right now, what do you all think about that? Is having basic knowledge of the rental agreement and all that something that is needed for young people?
Oh yeah, definitely. When I first rented my apartment in September, I had to jump through so many hurdles because either the lease was like written very weirdly, so I couldn't understand it, or it just omitted somehow. Like my car got towed because of, they said that like you have to pay for covered parking, but there's no covered parking. So I just assumed, oh, it's free. And then they towed my car.
Victoria, thank you for speaking your truth and sharing that. That sounds awful. Yeah, and Diego, I just also want to just thank you too for just redirecting that feedback exactly to where it belongs. And I appreciate that, you doing that in that way and speaking your truth and allowing youth to speak their truth in that way, in a way that I didn't do as a facilitator. So thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. So okay, well, let's Victoria's, then perhaps that's what needs to happen. It just needs to get brought back to Yak then and say, this is something that came up from the roundtable. Is this something you'd like the Ed Change team to work on?
Yeah, I definitely think it's something to bring back to Yak and something to work on.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay. What else do we notice just in general about the kinds of things that are on the Post-its in terms of barriers to housing that youth have asked us to work on?
A thing that I notice is that while there are not like solutions that end the problem, for almost every single one of these Post-its, there is something happening in our community that would provide that resource. And so what I see is like, and I'm so grateful and thankful to all the folks that have continued to come and participate, but I see the continued opportunity to like increase each other's knowledge of what we do so that we can be sure that the folks that need the information even have it.
So Austin, you're seeing that a lot of the stuff that Yak has asked us to focus on, there are people working on the issue and have solutions now. And it may be a matter of just bringing that information into a place that's useful for youth, and streamlining access to that. And that may be a big part of it. The other thing I'm noticing too, as Stephanie put into chat, just that issue of these are systemic, that a lot of the things that came out of the other roundtable that we did were kind of deliverables, right? Okay, there's a need for housing, so here's a house. Here's a tiny house. Here's a tent on a roof. Here is a way to make a house happen. And these what youth have asked us to focus on are just the actual reasons why I can't sign a lease on an apartment. And it's a related issue, but it's a more systemic focus on these ones too. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, there's issues with like felonies. There's all sorts of just things that can happen in a person's history too. What I'd like to do is, and thank you for Jesus for bringing that up, and I see it here too, It's just that there needs to be ways of figuring this out. There just need to be ways of figuring this out, that having people who've been justice involved for whatever reason not have access to a house does not serve anyone in Tucson. It doesn't serve anybody at all, least of all the person who needs a home. And so maybe it's time to make at least one or two of these crispy with the time that we've got. Who's not picked one that's willing to just unmute and pick a Post-it for us? All right, well, Sebastian, I said I was going to cold call you. So if you're handy, I'll cold call you right now. Sebastian, pick a Post-it for us if you would.
There's some of them that just don't make sense to, like, for me, just to like to provide like a homeless person. I just don't really get, like,
can you tell me more?
I don't know. Like, I also don't want to throw one out of just the window or just, just to offend somebody, but I'm gonna just do it anyway. So, like,
thank you.
Yeah. So, like, pay off everyone's debt. I don't really know. I just feel like if you're homeless, how did you get yourself in debt or get yourself on a credit card? I just don't get that. Give everyone a free car. Impossible. More Section 8 housing. That's the one I want to focus on, because I believe that Section 8 housing is for like a family, right? That's like almost prone of like not being able to like sustain themselves. I just don't get why I don't understand Section 8 houses. That's why I just don't know which one to pick. So they all kind of tie together. Pay everyone's debt, rental history forgiveness, like those two go hand in hand together in a way. Forgiving people's on renters credit, that goes as well to renter history forgiveness. So really, I don't know which one to pick when they all kind of tie together.
They're all connected. They're all part of the same system, and it's hard to choose just one. Well, maybe let's do Section 8, because I actually think we got a couple Section 8 experts in the call.
Yeah, I was going to say Section 8 was the one I would have picked. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I don't mind to speak to this a little bit. Because when I Sebastian, I understand like what is that on there? Isn't that for families? And I think it's a little bit of a misnomer, or like the way that we use to talk about voucher programs. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that probably could say like more housing vouchers, right? And so it's just a voucher program, and housing choice vouchers are prioritized like as permanent supportive, like permanent, and not forever, but as long as the eligibility. And I do think that there are, young people that, that we put in like transitional housing programs, rapid rehousing programs, that probably really do need a voucher, right? And so I think that, thinking about way prioritization, our vouchers, like we often prioritize vouchers for folks fleeing domestic violence, that sort of thing. Where's the conversation about prioritizing any of that for young people, So I think that there is like a need for more vouchers for young people. And the Public Housing Authority is the person who does that, and to some extent us, like I can try my best to poke the beast.
I think beast poking is a skill of a lot of people on this call, so it's an important thing to do. Would it make sense then just to maybe amend that more Section 8 housing, but specifically say like more Section 8 housing vouchers for youth?
Yeah, probably it would, if it said like more like permanent housing vouchers, like just even take the Section 8 part off.
Okay. Okay, so more permanent housing vouchers for youth, just in general. And so the Public Housing Authority is the group that would do it. Those are the people that would do it. Awesome. You had also mentioned though that another part of this is landlords accepting accepting permanent housing vouchers in the first place.
That is actually like one of the hugest, right? We can have 1,000 vouchers for every. I could say today that every young person, come see me, I'll give you a voucher. But that involves a landlord accepting subsidies. And like in the 6 months before I came here, right, like 4 landlords that I have been working with for 3 years are like, we don't actually accept subsidies anymore. And that came from like their corporate places. So I don't know. I don't know who in here has it tied in with landlords, but.
So that's a wicked problem, but it would also be a lot of fun. But just what would it take? Because there's different kinds of landlords. There's landlords that own big corporations that own all the complexes and things like that. There's people that are just people here in Tucson who might own more than one property and might be willing to do that. There might actually be, just from a marketing perspective, a layered way to reach out to landlords directly.
I just don't see a problem. Any landlord saying, hey, yeah, I have this complex with like 20 like apartments inside it, or you to come in as a business and tell them what you're going in for. I see no problem in why they shouldn't or wouldn't rent it out, because you're coming forth as a business. They're not having to evict anybody. And if they were to, that's because their funding had ended and now the people would have to leave. And because there's the corporation, all the legal issues tied down to it, they'd have no issue or worry. That's kind of my outlook on it. So like, I just feel like there's no problem on even just any of us just freely just going out there and asking. I just don't see any problem.
But there might be an opportunity, Sebastian, just to explain what all the upsides of it. Just in that case, if you have a permanent housing voucher, a permanent source of income, sure should be attractive to a landlord. That it should be kind of guaranteed. It's there. Here you go.
That is fair. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yep, exactly.
So why? And so then some education and some other, so I use the word marketing, but really it's education about what it is, why it's fine. Whatever it is that you're afraid of might not actually be as valid as you think it is, and there might be some upsides to doing that. Austin, and just because I think you might know this more than anyone else, who's doing that outreach?
So right now you can put me on this ticket, or you put City of Tucson on this ticket. But so at this very moment, not a particular person, right? But we know this is a problem, and you have certain people on y'all's team here that do work here at the city, and so there is a response to this. I have to train the team that's going to do this, and like landlord incentives are launching into the community to like address this issue. But I will be honest, like part of the frustration probably from a landlord side, or not frustration, this speaks to like a need of getting rid of shitty landlords. You can't actually get a subsidy if you don't take care of your property. And so there becomes also a part of folks want the money, like they want the guaranteed rent. They want to know that you'll get people out of their unit. But if you're like, that toilet is not code and this person deserves, dare I say, everybody freaking deserves a safe like place to live that everything functions. And so you have a lot of landlords that don't want to work with subsidies because they would have to be accountable to like safety in their spaces. And like the way that they try to document financial stuff, you can't take advantage of your tenant if the City of Tucson or the Public Housing Authority says, wait a minute, you can't all of a sudden increase their rent or tow their car. It's not outlined in the whatever. So there's that too.
So if you'd like to experience the benefits of having a permanent housing voucher, then there's some things that you need to do. And just for me, from a business perspective, then how can we make sure that only those kind of landlords know about permanent housing vouchers, and that the kind that won't fix a toilet never even knows this exists? Like that's the kind of thing to do. What I want to do is I'm sorry, sure, yes, Sebastian?
I was just saying, okay, yeah, from a business perspective, let's just say this. Okay, so you go to this business perspective, go to the landlord and say, hey, this is the contract, and this is what I'm asking of you, and anything that is not on this list, well, no shit, I'm gonna take care of it. That's kind of what should be communicated. I don't understand anything else. Like, okay, yeah, my rent, yeah, you can't raise the rent because we have a contract for a year or 2 years, it doesn't matter. Okay, you can't fix the toilets, I understand. Well, on the contract, it says what you can do and what you will do. You're the one that signed for it. That's kind of, you have to make that contract, right? You make that contract, you put forth on what that contract's going to say, what it's going to do, and how you are the one that makes that contract. And you're saying, how valid is that contract in reality? Well, it's this valid. I'm telling you that you won't raise the rent. And I'm telling you that we are with the City of Tucson. And I'm telling you you say, we're ready to occupy your whole facility right now. Your whole facility. What we're asking of you is this, this, and this, and what you ask of us, let us know. That's what you got to communicate. I just don't see any problem with that, or maybe I'm not hearing something.
No, there's a level of accountability that's going to be important to make the process.
I think that what you're kind of speaking to, what I hear is like you make a thing and the person should do it. And so those contracts are explicit and say that you will do blah, blah, blah. And then people don't take them. And I think that what we're getting to is the ways that we criminalize, stigmatize homelessness, right? Like, you want me to do this for that group of people? That's too much work. And so you can be as explicit as you want, and this is what you will provide to your tenants, and this is what we're the city of Tucson, we're saying this, and that business owner has the right to then say, I don't want to engage with you if that is what I have to do. And so that's our issue, Sebastian. It's like you were working with me and I said, Sebastian, I want an orange cup, and you were like, I'm not into orange cups, so I don't want to work with you. That's basically what we're up against. Landlords saying, you want us to be accountable to our properties? Well, then never mind. We don't want your money.
Yeah, so
okay, so how do we make a contract knowing that we have to actually be accountable for these actual people, when we know in reality we need to be accountable for them, because we are the ones that are going to house them. So we're saying, hey, we're going to house them. So obviously with housing somebody, you're the one that's going to be accountable for them either way, though, in my opinion. So let's say, okay, I'm gonna house these kids. So now how much money do we need to set aside to actually do all those maintenance jobs or to provide them with all those things, like that's kind of what I'm thinking it though.
Yeah, and that's what the landlord incentive program is going to do, and that's like starts in the next however many months.
Well,
now I understand. Thank you, Austin.
Yeah,
Sebastian, what you're bringing out is a really important point, and I'm sorry, I'm just being a really disciplined facilitator here, because I'm noting that there's 7 minutes left in our meeting, and there's time on the agenda that's more than 7 minutes to go. And I just want to make sure that we're able to honor the time we got, or just that the group can make a decision about what we do with it. But Sebastian, what you're talking about is exactly right. Is that however permanent housing vouchers are going to expand, it's going to be to get the right kind of landlord who's going to do what needs to be done, and it's also going to be how can we make it easier for landlords to do what needs to be done. And it sounds like, Austin, there's things that are happening that will work on that. And I think that there's an element of that of just finding the right people to partner with and lease these things would be a really fun project to work on. And I'm just going to think about that before I say yes. But I think that there's an outreach aspect to the work that would be really fun for somebody who likes outreach. What I'd like to do is just wrap up and notice we're going to practice one of the invitations today, and that was to expect and accept non-closure. We didn't finish every post-it. Not all of them are crispy on this one right here. But we got some really important ones on the education side, really, really crispy, where it is very, very clear what needs to happen and who should work on it. There's even some deadlines and dates on it. And I just want to just express my gratitude to everybody who stepped up and said, I'm going to do it, or even said, I'm already doing it, Tim. I've been working on this for months. And just letting everybody know that was a thing that was happening here in our community. This is beautiful, and I just appreciate you all very much. Diego, there's a survey that I think you got the link to. And I'm just going to quickly say what it is and then pass it over to Diego, and then Diego will pass it back to whoever's in charge of the next part. The idea for the survey is that, hey, if you claim to post it, just note it. Part of the post-it idea as well is just to say, hey, if there's somebody else that you're going to need to make that post-it happen somehow, note that too. If there's somebody on the call that you just think is really cool and you want to work with them, like Eva, when I fill out the survey, I want to work with you. You're doing some really cool stuff. I want to come see your facility because I want to have a roundtable there. So there's people that have talked about things that I want to meet you all and see where you work and get a better sense of it. So if that's happened to you on this call, make sure that you're plopping that in your survey as well. And we'll just check in on you. And the Education Exchange team plans on being as helpful to everybody as we can and just doing some amazing work. And then finally, just want to end just to thank the YAC members that are here today, but also just YAC in general. Your feedback was we couldn't have done it without you. And I'm just grateful for that. And just thanks. And just to HYC, thanks again for giving me the privilege of some time to be able to facilitate this work. It just feeds my soul to do it. Thank you. And I'm finished. Diego, do you got our survey for us and any other instructions maybe?
Yes, I posted the survey in the chat. Um, do we have like 3 minutes to allow people to fill it out, Shannon? Or is
We
that?
can give the like few minutes, and if anybody has any collaboration corner, maybe we can kind of do those together. I just wanted to thank Tim for giving us his time and facilitating today. And also, if you have collaboration questions, they don't have to wait till today. We have resources in Basecamp. We can ask questions on Campfire on Basecamp and get some questions answered a lot sooner. So I just wanted to highlight that, knowing that we're kind of up against our 5 p.m. time.
So let's just have like maybe 2 minutes to fill this out for whoever's here. And also, I know some people left early. Is it possible to get their emails so that we can send it directly to them?
We can do that.
Awesome. And I
All right, and if anybody has any collaboration questions, if there are issues that they're needing for their clients, now would be the time to bring that up.
And Tim, can I can I share my screen once you're done?
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you. So while we're filling out the survey, I just want to talk about the next steps real quick and what's going to look like. So y'all are going to fill out the survey because you're all awesome. And Daniela will follow up with an email linking people together who identified which posted they're going to be working with and opportunities to collaborate. The results from this may end up being a third roundtable, or will inform immediate action steps. It could also be informing the education and housing provider toolkit, which is which is part of the CCP of what the education team came together for. But just be aware that those are the results that will come from this second roundtable, and we'll keep you all posted so that you know what happens. Other than that, thank you all for participating today and for giving awesome feedback. The YAC again, we can't do anything without you all. And we can't do anything with the partners here and the providers. So thank you all for taking your time. And I'll just turn it to Shannon now.
All right, we are at our 5, and I haven't seen anything come through the chat or any hands raised. So I'll give another minute, see if anybody has anything to add for Collaboration Corner or any questions about the roundtable today. And we will end at 5. And I'm so glad everybody came to roundtable number 2.
Quick question. Who can I get the emails from so that I can send this survey to?
Me.
Okay.
Kat put a link for the attendance in here when she was in my stead, and I have it.
Awesome. Cool.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We will see you next month.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.